Well, the Gabby Petito case is just another example of violence against women, and we know exactly the specifics of her case are unknown, rather, but we do know that according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, on average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States, and that's 20 people per minute. So joining us now to give us some guidance and perspective on how to identify any of these situations and what, if anything, we should do if we witness domestic violence is the Director of Futures Without Violence, Kirsten Stewart. Kirsten, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start with the basics. We all know that abusive relationships don't all look alike. What are some of the key factors that you look for?
Absolutely. If you're a family or friend or even just a concerned member of the community, you want to notice if somebody's changing their behavior, if they seem to be afraid of their partner, if somebody who is enthusiastic and exuberant is all of a sudden very quiet or shy. Certainly if you see bruises or cuts that can't be explained, but that isn't always the case. Sometimes the scars are very much inside. So if you do see or are concerned about domestic violence, ideally you can find a quiet time to talk to the person you're concerned about and really just ask them. We encourage people not to blame somebody, not to shame, to just make themselves available to have a conversation.
And in the Gabby Petito case specifically, we see that police cam video where she seems upset and he has scratches on his face. How can you differentiate whether someone is truly in danger versus a couple that's having an argument or having some sort of breakdown?
That is a hard question. And if you're, far away and out in public, you can't always tell. We suggest you always take your cue from the person who seems potentially to be the victim. Again, are they afraid of that person? Are they trying to avoid that person? Are they, sometimes the person who takes all the blame isn't necessarily the person who's doing the harm. So we always recommend that you try not to escalate the violence. You certainly don't want to do that. Getting in a confrontation with someone is not recommended. Again, ideally, you would try to take that person to the side. If you can separate the two people, have a conversation, offer resources. There's a National Domestic Violence Hotline number that you can share. But really, it's about asking the person what they want, what they need, and if they feel safe.
So let's say, for example, a 911 call is made. What resources do police departments have to help victims and survivors? And are there specific police departments that have procedures that are best practices in this situation?
There's been extensive training thanks to the Violence Against Women Act for law enforcement. And that doesn't mean everybody does it perfectly right all the time, but we do see many better practices happening. One of the ideal situations is that you actually bring a domestic violence advocate out with you on a call for domestic violence, so they can take the person aside, have a conversation. You want police to de-escalate the situation as much as possible, question the people separate and apart from one another. Often if there are children in the home, we also ask that police officers pay attention to the needs of the children. Again, not asking the children to necessarily choose, one parent over another. That's a deeply traumatic experience for a child, but to be sure that there's also someone that the child can talk to and that the child's trauma from that experience is also addressed.
So much to consider. And yet we all know that when victims try to leave these types of relationships, that's when it's most dangerous. Many choose to stay in these relationships. What steps can be taken to ensure that there is safety both in or out of that relationship?
Well, we strongly recommend someone who's concerned about domestic violence to talk to a domestic violence advocate. They can help that person develop what we call a safety plan. And that really depends on the unique circumstances of that person. You help them identify, do you have a place to go if you need to? Do you know where your car keys are? Do you have what we call a go bag? Important, like your birth certificate, important papers, any medicines. So if you do need to leave a home quickly, you can just grab it and go. There are many domestic violence agencies across the country. As I said, there's also the National Domestic Violence Hotline, who can be reached via email, via phone, via chat. It's a great place to start, even if you're not necessarily ready to leave, or if you're just a concerned friend or family member. They can walk you through the steps that are tied to this person's particular situation.
And if someone is seeking help, where do you counsel them to seek help first? What should the first step be?
So most people actually reach out to friend or family first. Some people will talk to their faith leaders, healthcare providers. We think are another wonderful resource, especially because you can have the privacy to talk to them about what may be going on, as well as what may be the health consequences of violence. Most people don't actually go to the police first. And again, we strongly recommend a call to a domestic violence advocate. Many domestic violence programs just have someone you can talk to. You don't have to be ready to leave the relationship or run to a shelter. It can just be a person to talk to start thinking about your situation and what might be your options.
Kirsten Stewart, so much valuable information. As the director of Futures Without Violence, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and thank you so much for covering this story. We really appreciate it.
Well, we're grateful to you. So if you or someone you know may be a victim of domestic violence, regardless of gender, you can call the National Domestic Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 7233. Or you can also text START to 88788.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.